They didn't send men to Verdun to win. They sent them there to die. Not in the chaotic, accidental way that men die in most wars, where generals miscalculate, where plans go wrong, where the unexpected kills. No, at Verdun, the dying was the plan. A German general sat down in late 1915, put pen to paper, and deliberately designed a battle whose sole strategic purpose was to kill as many French soldiers as possible. Not to capture ground, not to break through the lines, just to bleed, to drain France of her young men so completely, so systematically, so industrially, that she would have no choice but to surrender or cease to exist as a fighting nation. His name was Erich von Falkenhayn, and what he created over the next 10 months was not a battle. It was a machine for turning human beings into casualties at the highest possible rate. And the most devastating part, the part that should make you stop and think, is that it almost worked. And that in the process of almost working, it consumed nearly as many Germans as it did French. 700,000 men, 10 months. And at the end of it all, the front line was almost exactly where it had started. This is the full story of the Battle of Verdun, and I promise you, by the time this is over, you will never think about war the same way again. Before we go into the battle itself, you need to understand the world that produced it. Because Verdun did not come from nowhere. It was the logical conclusion of everything that had gone wrong in the previous 18 months of World War I. By late 1915, the Western Front had been frozen solid for over a year. The great armies of Europe, British, French, German, were locked in an unbroken line of trenches stretching 450 miles from the English Channel to the Swiss border. Nobody was going anywhere. Every offensive had failed. Every attempt to break through had ended in catastrophic casualties and minimal gains. The machine gun and the barbed wire had between them made offensive warfare almost suicidal, and nobody in any high command on either side had yet figured out what to do about it. On the German side, the pressure was immense. Germany was fighting a two-front war, Russia in the east, France and Britain in the west, exactly the nightmare scenario that German military planners had spent decades trying to avoid. The naval blockade that Britain had imposed was slowly strangling the German economy. Civilian food supplies were already being rationed. The German army had suffered enormous casualties in 1914 and 1915 trying to achieve the quick decisive victory that the Schlieffen Plan had promised and failed to deliver. By the end of 1915, Erich von Falkenhayn, chief of the German General Staff, was looking at a war of attrition that Germany was slowly losing, and he needed a new idea. What he came up with was, by any measure, one of the most coldly evil strategic concepts in the history of warfare. Falkenhayn's analysis was this: France was the key. Britain could not fight without France. If France collapsed, Britain would have no choice but to negotiate. And France, Falkenhayn believed, was already close to breaking. 3 years of revolution, political instability, and the trauma of 1870, when Germany had last defeated France and taken Alsace-Lorraine, had left the French national psyche fragile in ways that the current war was making worse. French casualties had been catastrophic. French society was straining under the weight of the war. And crucially, Falkenhayn believed there were certain places on the map that France simply could not allow to fall, places so loaded with symbolic and strategic importance that France would fight to the last man to hold them, regardless of the cost. Verdun was one of those places. Verdun was a fortress city in northeastern France that had been a symbol of French military pride for centuries. It had withstood siege after siege throughout French history. In the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, it had been one of the last French fortresses to surrender. To allow Verdun to fall would be, in French eyes, a national humiliation of almost unthinkable magnitude. Falkenhayn knew this, and he designed his entire plan around it. His memorandum to the Kaiser, known to historians as the Christmas Memorandum, written in December 1915, laid it out with chilling clarity. Germany would attack Verdun with overwhelming force. France, unable to let Verdun fall, would pour her reserves into defending it, and Germany would use that commitment to bleed the French army white, to kill French soldiers faster than France could replace them, until the French army simply ceased to be a functional fighting force. Falkenhayn's own phrase was that Germany would bleed France to death at Verdun. The trap was set. All that remained was to spring it. But here is the first thing that should make you deeply uneasy about this entire story. Falkenhayn's plan required something that no military plan can ever truly guarantee. It required France to behave exactly as predicted. It required the French to keep feeding men into the battle even as the casualties mounted. It required French pride and French honor to override French strategic sense. And it required Germany to be able to control the rate of attrition, to bleed France without bleeding Germany equally badly in the process. None of those assumptions would prove entirely correct. But by the time anyone on either side fully understood that, it was far too late to stop what had been started.